Have you ever asked yourself this question? Was my mother a narcissist, or am I just overreacting? Maybe you've read articles, watched videos, compared symptoms, and yet the doubt lingers. Because it's your mother, the person who gave you life, the person who's supposed to love you unconditionally. How can you call her a narcissist? It feels wrong, it feels ungrateful, it feels like a betrayal, and that's exactly what keeps you stuck. Today, I'm going to do something different. I'm not going to give you a list of symptoms. I'm not going to give you a checklist of behaviors. I'm going to ask you a single question. A question that will cut through all your defenses, all your justifications, all your doubts, and when you answer honestly, you'll know. You'll finally know. Carl Jung spent his entire life studying what he called the mother complex, for he understood that the relationship with your mother is the foundation of everything. The first relationship, the first love, the first blueprint of how the world works. And when that relationship is toxic, everything that comes after is contaminated. But Jung also knew something crucial. The human psyche has powerful defense mechanisms, especially when it comes to your mother. We protect her image, even when she hurts us, even when she destroys us. Because admitting your mother was a narcissist means admitting something terrible, that the person who was supposed to love you more than anyone else couldn't. Not because you were insufficient, but because she was incapable. And that's devastating. So the mind creates defenses. She wasn't that bad. Everyone has difficult mothers. I'm just too sensitive. She did the best she could. These phrases are traps, not because they're completely false, but because they prevent you from seeing the truth. And the truth is what sets you free. Before I reveal the question, I need to explain why it works. Most narcissism tests fail for one simple reason. They ask about behaviors. Did your mother criticize you? Was your mother controlling? Did your mother make everything about her? The problem is that children of narcissistic mothers have been trained to minimize. She criticized me, but it was for my own good. She was controlling, but it was because she cared. She made everything about her. But that's just how mothers are. You've been programmed to defend her since birth. So, questions about behaviors don't work, because you'll find justifications for every single one. The question I'm going to ask you isn't about behavior, it's about feeling, and specifically, a feeling that cannot be faked, a feeling that your conscious mind can't distort. Hold that thought, because we'll need this context soon. Jung identified something he called the primary maternal wound. It's the wound that happens when the mother fails to provide what the child needs emotionally. Every child is born needing certain things: to be seen, to be validated, to be accepted unconditionally, to feel safe, to feel loved. When the mother provides this, the child develops a solid sense of self. When the mother fails, the child develops a wound. And that wound has a specific emotional signature. It's not anger, it's not sadness, it's not fear, it's something deeper, something that permeates everything. And it's exactly that feeling that the question will reveal. Let me tell you about a woman named Ashley. Ashley was 45 years old when she finally managed to name what she felt in relation to her mother. For decades, she lived in confusion. Her mother was full of contradictions, generous with gifts, but cruel with words, physically present, but emotionally absent, loving in public, but cold in private. Ashley couldn't fit the pieces together. Friends said her mother seemed wonderful. Relatives said she should be grateful. And Ashley started to doubt herself. Maybe I'm the problem. Maybe I'm ungrateful. Maybe I'm imagining things. This lasted 40 years, until a therapist asked her a simple question, a question that changed everything. I'm going to ask you that same question soon. But first, I need you to understand the context. Narcissistic mothers are masters of confusion. They aren't consistently bad. If they were, it would be easy to identify them. They alternate. Moments of affection followed by inexplicable coldness. Praise followed. by devastating criticism. Closeness followed by emotional abandonment. This creates what psychologists call attachment trauma. Thus, you never know which version of your mother is going to show up. So, you live in a constant state of alertness, and that state of alertness becomes normal. You don't even realize it anymore. And when someone asks about your childhood, you minimize, because compared to physical violence or extreme neglect, it seems like you have nothing to complain about. But Jung knew that there are invisible wounds, wounds that don't leave marks on the body, but destroy the soul. The question I'm going to ask you reveals exactly that wound, and here we go. The question is simple, but I need you to do something before you answer. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine you are in the presence of your mother, not thinking about her. In her presence, feel what happens in your body, in your chest, in your stomachs, in your shoulders. Now, answer honestly. When you are near your mother, or when you think about being near her, do you feel at peace? That's the question. Not if she loves you, not if she's a good person, not if she did good things for you. When you are in her presence, do you feel peace, or do you feel something else? Tension, anxiety, the need to be on alert, fear of saying something wrong, a feeling of walking on eggshells. Children of healthy mothers feel peace in their presence, even if they disagree, even if they have conflicts. The basic feeling is one of safety. Children of narcissistic mothers feel the opposite. Even when everything seems fine, there's an underlying tension, a feeling that something could go wrong at any moment, a state of vigilance that never turns off. And that state has become so normal that you may not even realize it exists until you stop, breathe, and really feel what you felt when you imagined being in her presence. Be honest with yourself. No one is listening. Wait, no one will judge. It's just you and the truth, peace or tension. If the answer was tension, keep watching, because this changes everything. Let me explain why this question works. The feeling of peace or tension in someone's presence is a primary indicator of emotional safety. It cannot be falsified. You can rationalize behaviors. It can justify actions. Then it can create narratives, but it can't fake peace when you feel tension. Your body knows, and the body doesn't lie. Jung called this somatic awareness, or somatic knowing. The body stores truths that the mind prefers to hide. And when you stop thinking and start feeling, the truth emerges. If you feel chronic tension in Ashley's presence, that means something. It means that on some level, your nervous system has learned that she isn't safe. Not necessarily physically, but emotionally. And emotional safety is exactly what children need from their mothers. And it's exactly what narcissistic mothers fail to provide. So your body learned to stay on high alert, because you never knew when the next criticism would come, when the next abandonment would happen, when the next humiliation would arrive. And even though you've rationalized all of this, your body hasn't forgotten. It's still on alert, still waiting for danger, still unable to relax. This isn't exaggeration. This isn't being overly sensitive. This is trauma, and recognizing that is the first step to healing. Now let me delve deeper into what this tension actually means. There are different types of tension that children of narcissistic mothers experience. The first is the tension of performance, the feeling that you need to be a certain way to be accepted. When you're around her, you can't simply be you. You need to be the version that she approves of, the successful version, the agreeable version, the version that doesn't cause trouble, and maintaining that mask is exhausting. And that's why you feel tension, because being yourself isn't safe. The second is the tension of anticipation, the feeling that something bad can happen at any moment. You're constantly scanning. Is her mood okay? What is she going to say? How will she react? It's a state of hypervigilance that has become automatic. You don't even realize you're doing it, but your body does, and your body is tired. The third is the tension of invalidation, the feeling that what you feel or think will be dismissed. You learn to censor your own thoughts, because sharing truthfully was never safe. Your opinions were wrong. Your feelings were exaggerated. Your perspective was distorted. So you learn to keep everything to yourself, and that creates tension. Because you exist, but you can't be seen. The fourth is the tension of guilt. The feeling that you are responsible for her feelings. If she's sad, it's your fault. If she's angry, you did something wrong. If she's disappointed, you failed. This reversal of responsibility is characteristic of narcissistic mothers. The child becomes responsible for the mother's emotional well-being. And that's an impossible burden to carry. But you carry it anyway, and you feel tension. Now let me make an important distinction. Every relationship has moments of tension. Mothers and children disagree, have conflicts, go through difficult phases. That's normal. What isn't normal is chronic tension. Tension that exists even when there's no apparent conflict. Tension that you feel just by being in the same space as her. Tension that starts even before you meet her and continues after she's gone. That's not a difficult relationship. That's relational trauma or attachment trauma, and it's important to name it correctly. Going back to Ashley's story, when the therapist asked if she felt peace around her mother, Ashley cried because she realized she had never felt peace. Not once. In 45 years of life, every visit was a preparation, a performance, a recovery. Before going, she prepared herself mentally. During the visit, she monitored every word. After leaving, she needed days to recover, and that was normal for her. So normal that she didn't even question it. But when she finally stopped to feel, the truth was undeniable. It wasn't peace. It was survival. And no one should need to survive their own mother. Jung wrote that the mother is the first archetype. The great mother represents nurturing, safety, unconditional acceptance. When the real mother fails to embody this, the psyche suffers, because the primary model of love becomes toxic. And all love after that is filtered through this distortion. You learn that love comes with conditions, that acceptance needs to be earned, that safety is temporary and can be taken away at any moment. And you take that into all your relationships, until you recognize where it came from. Let me talk about the objections that your mind will create, because it will create them. The defense mechanisms are powerful. The first objection: but I feel tension around many people. That may be true, and that may be exactly the point. If you feel chronic tension in many relationships, where did you learn that? Where did you learn that relationships are tense? Probably at home. Probably with her. The narcissistic mother doesn't create tension only in the relationship with her. She teaches that tension is normal in all relationships, so you replicate that. In friendships, in dating, at work. But the origin is one. The second objection: she had her own problems. She did the best she could. That may be true, and it's irrelevant. Understanding why your mother was that way doesn't change the impact on you. A person run over by a driver who had a heart attack is still injured. It doesn't matter that the driver wasn't to blame. The damage happened. And recognizing the damage isn't blaming, it's seeing the truth. The third objection: other people have had it worse. So what? Another person having more severe cancer doesn't mean your cancer isn't cancer. Comparing suffering is a trap that invalidates your experience, and probably a trap that you learned from her, because narcissistic mothers are masters at invalidating. You're crying about that. Other children are starving. You're complaining, I had a much worse childhood. You're so dramatic. That's nothing. These phrases taught you to minimize your own pain, and you still do that, until now. The fourth objection: but she loves me. Love is action, not just feeling. A mother can feel that she loves her child and still hurt them constantly. Narcissistic love isn't healthy love. It's conditional love, transactional love, love that serves the narcissist, not the child. If you feel chronic tension around her, the love she offers isn't safe, and toxic love can coexist with genuine affection. but that doesn't make it less toxic. Now hold on to that, because we're going to the most important part: what you do with this information. You answered the question. You felt that tension, didn't you? And now, first, allow yourself to feel. So many people get to this point and immediately try to rationalize again. Okay, she was a narcissist. So what? I can't change the past. That's another defense, a way to avoid feeling the magnitude of what was lost. Because recognizing that Ashley was a narcissist means recognizing that you didn't get what you needed. It means recognizing that the childhood that should have been safe wasn't. It means grieving something that never existed. And that hurts. Carl Jung said that there is no transformation without pain. And it's true. Healing begins when you stop avoiding the pain and allow it to exist, not to get stuck in it, but to move through it. Second, stop trying to fix her. This is a common pattern in children of narcissistic mothers, the eternal hope that if you just do the right thing, she'll finally change. If you're successful enough, she'll approve of you. If you're loving enough, she'll reciprocate. If you're patient enough, she'll get better. That hope is a trap, because narcissistic mothers rarely change. Not because they can't, but because they don't see the need. In her mind, she's the victim, you're the problem. And as long as you keep trying to fix her, you remain trapped in the cycle. Carl Jung called this projection. You project onto her the capacity to change that you wish she had. But she doesn't. And accepting that is liberating. Not because giving up is good, but because it allows you to redirect your energy. Instead of trying to change someone who won't change, you start to heal yourself. Third, establish boundaries. This is crucial and extremely difficult. Children of narcissistic mothers were trained not to have boundaries. Any boundary was seen as rejection, as ingratitude, as an attack. You learned that having boundaries was dangerous, so you stopped having them. But boundaries are essential for mental health. They define where you end and another person begins. And with a narcissistic mother, that line was constantly violated. You weren't a separate person. You were an extension of her. And now, you need to reclaim your separation. This might mean limiting contact. It might mean not sharing certain information. It might mean not answering every call immediately. It might mean saying no. Every boundary will feel wrong at first, because you were programmed not to have them. But every boundary is an act of self-love, and the more you practice them, the more natural it becomes. Fourth, seek appropriate support. You don't have to do this alone. In fact, you shouldn't. A therapist specializing in family trauma can make a huge difference. Someone who understands the narcissistic dynamic, who won't tell you to simply forgive and move on, who will validate your experience while helping you to process. Support groups can also help. Hearing from other people with similar experiences is powerful, because you realize you're not alone, that you're not overreacting, that your pain is real, and you realize you just received some of the most powerful tools to understand a relationship that has perhaps confused you for decades. But the journey doesn't end here. This channel exists to illuminate the shadows that society prefers to ignore, to give a voice to the children who grew up in silence. If you felt that this video spoke directly to your story, the super thanks button down there isn't just support. It's a way of saying this truth needs to continue being revealed. Each contribution allows more people to find the answers that you are finding now. You're not just a spectator, you're part of something bigger, a movement of people breaking generational cycles. Let me tell you about a common trap, the trap of forced forgiveness. Many people will tell you that you need to forgive your mother to move on. Forgive and forget. Honor your father and your mother. She's your mother after all. These phrases are dangerous, not because forgiveness is bad, but because forced forgiveness isn't forgiveness. It's suppression. It's pretending the wound doesn't exist instead of healing it. Carl Jung never spoke about forgiveness as suppression. He spoke about integration, about bringing the shadow into the light, about recognizing what happened, feeling what needs to be felt, and then choosing how to move forward. Forgiveness can be part of that process, but it's not mandatory, and it's definitely not the first step. The first step is truth. And you've already taken that step today by answering the question with honesty, by allowing yourself to feel the tension, by recognizing that your experience was real. That's what heals, not pretending nothing happened, but looking directly at what happened and choosing a different path. Let me tell you about what happens when you do this work. First, relationships change. When you stop replicating the maternal pattern, you start to attract different people who are genuinely safe, who don't cause chronic tension, who allow you to be yourself, and you stop tolerating what previously seemed normal, because now you know you deserve more. Second, you get to know yourself better. Much of what you think is your personality, maybe adaptation. You're quiet because you learned that speaking was dangerous. You're anxious because you learned that relaxing was risky. You're a perfectionist because you learned that mistakes were unacceptable. When you remove these adaptations, you discover who you really are, and that discovery is liberating. Third, the tension decreases, not immediately, not completely, but gradually. You learn to relax, to trust, to exist without being in survival mode, and that changes everything, because energy that was previously spent on vigilance is now available for living. Let me end with a reflection. The question I asked today isn't magic. It's simply a shortcut to the truth, a truth that you probably already knew, but couldn't admit. Because admitting that Ashley was a narcissist is admitting that you were hurt. And admitting that you were hurt is painful, but it's also the beginning of healing. Carl Jung said that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Today you brought something to consciousness. You looked at the truth about the relationship with your mother, and that changes your fate, not magically, but definitely, because now you can choose. Choose to process instead of suppress. Choose boundaries instead of sacrifice. Choose healthy relationships instead of replicating the toxic pattern. The child you were had no choice. She was born into that system. She did what she could to survive. But you are not that child anymore. You are an adult who now knows the truth. And adults with truth can choose differently. Before we wrap up, let me address something that many feel, but few talk about: the guilt. After recognizing that your mother was a narcissist comes the guilt. Guilt for even thinking that about her. Guilt for finally naming it. Guilt for not being able to simply love unconditionally. This guilt is expected. You were programmed to feel it. Narcissistic mothers are experts at cultivating guilt in their children. Any negative thought about her, you learned was wrong. Any feeling of anger, you learned was ungratefulness. Any desire for distance, you learned was cruelty. So now, when you finally recognize the truth, the guilt pops up. But let me tell you something important. Recognizing that your mother was a narcissist is not hating her. It's seeing clearly. You can love someone and recognize that that person hurt you. These things coexist. In fact, only when you recognize the truth can you love in a healthy way. Love that denies reality is not love, it's illusion. And that illusion keeps you trapped. The truth liberates, even when it hurts. Carl Jung spoke extensively about the shadow, the part of us that we hide, that we deny, that we repress. And he said that the integration of the shadow is the path to wholeness. Recognizing that your mother was a narcissist is an act of integration. You are bringing into the light something that was in the shadows, and that is courageous, not cowardly, not ungrateful, not cruel, courageous. Because most people spend their entire lives in denying, protecting the image of their mother, protecting the fantasy of a childhood that never existed, and paying the price of that denial. In every relationship, you chose differently. You chose the truth, and that changes everything. Let me talk about a concept that Jung developed, called individuation. Individuation is the process of becoming who you really are, not who your parents wanted you to be, not who society says you should be, but who you genuinely are. For children of narcissistic mothers, individuation was blocked because the narcissistic mother does not allow the child to be a separate person. She sees the child as an extension of herself. His desires must be hers. His opinions must echo hers. His life must serve her. And any movement toward separation is experienced as betrayal. So you stopped individuating. You merged, you adapted, you molded, and lost contact with who you really are. Recognizing the truth about your mother is the first step in resuming that process. And finally, discovering who you are. When you're not trying to please her, who you are. When you're not afraid of her reaction, who you are. When you're free to simply exist. That person exists. She's buried under layers of adaptation, but she exists, and she's waiting to emerge. This video was an invitation to look at the truth. A truth that maybe you've avoided for years, for decades, because looking was too painful, because the implications were too scary, because admitting it meant losing the hope that one day she would change. But hope based on denial is not hope, it's prison. And the truth, as painful as it may be, is freedom. You answered the question. You know the answer. And now you have a choice. You can go back to denying. You can pretend you didn't see what you saw. You can continue protecting her image. Or you can start the path of healing. It's not easy. It's not quick. But it's possible. And you deserve it. The child you were deserved a mother who made her feel peace. She didn't have that. But the adult you are now can give that to herself, can create internal safety, can build relationships where peace is possible, can break the cycle, not for her, for you, and for whoever comes after you. Answer in the comments. What did you feel when you imagined being in the presence of your mother? Peace or tension? I want to know, because your answer matters. Your experience matters. You matter, even if she never made you feel that way. Until the next video,